President Ibrahim Traore was sitting inside an old library located in his residence. In front of him lay scattered hundreds of secret reports from past governments. While going through these files, his eyes fell on one particular file whose cover read, "Classified, National Asset." As soon as he opened the file, a spark of astonishment appeared in his eyes and he sat upright. The reports clearly revealed that some key figures of Burkina Faso's former government, committing treachery, had secretly transferred gold worth $200 billion from the national treasury to Russia. This gold was not just wealth, it was the sovereignty of the nation and the trust of the people. Ibrahim Traore's hands began to tremble. Who did this? When did it happen? And on whose orders? Questions swirled through his mind like a storm. He immediately summoned the National Intelligence Agency and ordered an investigation. In the initial probe, the facts that emerged were even more horrifying. This seemed to be part of an international conspiracy, in which not only former government officials, but also foreign agencies were involved. Ibrahim Traore immediately suspended and arrested all the old officers stationed at the gold mines and selected a new team. During the investigation, the center of this conspiracy turned out to be a remote Russian region where the gold was hidden inside an old secret tunnel. Astonishingly, even the Russian government itself was unaware of the treasure's existence. President Ibrahim immediately contacted the Russian president. The phone call took place in a serious and powerful silence. "This gold is the honor of our nation. It must be returned." The Russian president replied without hesitation, "If this truly belongs to your nation, we will return it immediately." Both leaders agreed to carry out this mission in complete secrecy, but they were unaware that the world's most dangerous agency, Mossad, was watching their every move. Mossad's secret satellites and ground agents were constantly monitoring every link between Burkina Faso and Russia. At a designated point, one Mossad agent reported, "A huge treasure is about to be transferred between Burkina Faso and Russia." Israel's top officials immediately called an emergency meeting. For them, this was a golden opportunity. Not only could they seize the gold, but they could also present Burkina Faso before the world as a terrorist state. Meanwhile, Ibrahim Traore began to sense the danger. He requested the Russian authorities to take extra precautions. But time was short, and the decision immense. If the gold did not return, it would not just be a loss of wealth, but the complete destruction of a nation's hope, trust, and dignity. The next day in his national address, President Ibrahim did not mention the gold directly, but he spoke a sentence that shocked every listener. "If any enemy tries to loot our wealth, we will pierce his heart." At that very moment, preparations for the secret mission had already begun. In Russia, a cargo ship was being prepared, a vessel that, after decades, was about to return a nation's honor. But Mossad was already prepared, and now this gold was no longer just a treasure. It had become a battlefield. The cold winds of Moscow, when passing through that deserted industrial area, spread an eerie sensation. This region was a hub of old Soviet-era secret warehouses and laboratories, a place forbidden for ordinary citizens. Under the command of Russian special units, a silent operation had begun. Intelligence reports had been confirmed that decades ago, Burkina Faso's $200 billion worth of gold was buried beneath the ground in a massive tunnel in this very area. The mission was commanded by an experienced Russian general, personally appointed by President Putin. He had only one objective: Burkina Faso's trust must be returned without any loss. In a coded message, President Ibrahim Traore thanked the Russian president, saying, "This is not just wealth, this is the breath of our nation." When the tunnel's gate was opened, the scene inside was astonishing. Huge gold bricks, engraved with Burkina Faso's national emblem. Alongside them were wooden chests, some old documents, and a few sealed bags. This treasure was not only precious, but filled with evidence. The Russian army immediately sealed off the entire area and deployed special guards for the protection of the gold. A separate terminal was assigned for the cargo aircraft, so that the mission could be executed in complete secrecy. The cargo plane chosen for Burkina Faso was equipped with the latest technology, including satellite communication, anti-jamming radar, and secret hard disk lockers. On the other side, President Ibrahim Traore gave clear instructions to his staff. "We must not let the enemy realize what we are about to do. We must silently reclaim our honor." During a secret briefing, an officer from Russia's FSB warned, "We suspect Mossad has gotten wind of this mission," but the Russian president decided that the mission could no longer be stopped. This matter remained confined to just 3 people: the Russian president, the general, and Ibrahim Traore. This was the moment when between Burkina Faso and Russia began a complete, yet entirely, a secret agreement was reached. Ibrahim Traore also promised, as a gesture of goodwill, to present a few gold bricks to Russia, which Russia accepted with sincerity. But on the other side of the world, in Tel Aviv, a high alert had already been issued. Mossad's satellites had locked onto that region. An agent reported to headquarters. Unusual activity, possible valuable cargo, possible diplomatic secret. In Mossad's internal meeting, a decision was made. This aircraft must be stopped at all costs, but in such a way that the world believes we are preventing terrorism. Meanwhile, the cargo plane was ready for departure from Moscow. Every brick, every bag, and every file was scanned, sealed, and carefully placed inside the aircraft. The pilot was given strict instructions that if at any point there was any disturbance, Emergency Protocol 0 must be enforced immediately. Ibrahim Traore sent a farewell message to the Russian president. "We will never forget this friendship." The cargo aircraft rose into the sky in the silence of night, without a sound. But no one knew that within a few hours, this gold would not just be a flight, it would become the cause of a global war. The aircraft pierced through Moscow's cold night skies with silent wings. This was no ordinary flight. This was the beginning of a mission on which the honor, dignity, and trust of an entire nation depended. The gold-laden aircraft was being escorted under the supervision of 3 different satellite navigation systems, 2 backup pilots, and an emergency code locker as it headed towards Burkina Faso. From his high-tech command center in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim Traore began monitoring the aircraft's progress on radar. The joint intelligence teams of Russia and Burkina Faso were constantly ensuring that there was no espionage or interference. At first, everything was normal. The aircraft crossed Kazakhstan's airspace, then passed Turkmenistan, and moved past Iran towards the African air route. On the radar, the blue line moved forward steadily, but suddenly, as if struck by a violent jolt, the line vanished. Ibrahim Traore's heartbeat froze for a moment. "What just happened?" he shouted. Silence engulfed the command room. All operators immediately began checking the systems. The intelligence chief reported, "Sir, the aircraft's signal has disappeared. Neither the satellite link is working, nor does anything appear on the radar." "Is there any jamming going on?" Ibrahim asked. "Possible, but such action is beyond the capacity of ordinary powers." Moments later, as soon as the national media team saw the breaking news, everything became clear. On Israeli news channels, a shocking claim was being broadcast. Mossad has foiled the world's biggest terrorist gold smuggling attempt. The report said Israel had intercepted and seized in midair a cargo aircraft that was allegedly being used by terrorists. The gold, worth $200 billion, was claimed to be intended for terrorist purposes. American and European media immediately picked up the story without verification. Ibrahim Traore sat on his chair, staring at the screen. His fists were clenched, his eyes burned with fiery anger, and his lips were sealed in silence. "This is our trust, and now we are being called terrorists?" He immediately summoned his national security advisor. "This is not just an attack. This is a strike at our identity, our integrity, and the very roots of our nation. This is no longer a secret matter. The enemy has declared war." Ouagadougou's air traffic controllers were helpless too. No signal, no sound message, no trace. The aircraft had completely disappeared, as if someone had sucked it out of the sky. At that moment, a senior officer of the intelligence agency reported to Ibrahim Traore, "Our team is convinced this can only be the work of Mossad. They disabled the aircraft using an electromagnetic pulse and hijacked it." Now Ibrahim Traore's face showed not only anger, but the light of vengeance. Ending the briefing, he only said, "Now we will give the enemy a wound that the world will remember. If they think we are a small nation, then we will show them that even a small nation can bring down the sky." The consultation room was drowned in silence. Outside, the night was dark, but inside Ibrahim Traore, a storm had awakened. 2 days passed. Across the world, Ibrahim Traore's name was being raised as the secret patron of terrorists. Israeli media claimed that Mossad had succeeded in a covert mission by intercepting a cargo plane allegedly transporting gold for terrorists under Burkina Faso's name. American news networks even ran special programs, declaring Ibrahim Traore as the region's new threat. But Ibrahim Traore remained silent. He knew well that the language of the media changes only when the mask is torn from the face of reality. On the third afternoon, Israel made a pleasant announcement before the world. They claimed that they were sending back a new cargo plane to Burkina Faso, and in a lightly apologetic tone, suggested it had been a minor mistake. The report said, "We later learned that the plane belonged to Burkina Faso, and we are respectfully returning it." When this news reached Ouagadougou Airport, Ibrahim Traore immediately said, "I will go myself. Now this matter cannot be resolved without my presence." The security chief, the intelligence agency, and senior officials of the aviation authority departed with him. At the airport, cameras of all TV channels were set up. The people were hopeful. Their lost dignity was finally returning. As soon as the Israeli cargo plane landed on the runway, the crowd applauded, some even raised slogans. But Ibrahim Traore remained silent. He knew well, the enemy never apologizes so easily. As soon as the aircraft door opened, military units began inspection. The moment the first officer entered, he sensed an odd emptiness in the air. No crew, no pilot, no gold, no documents. The security chief rushed back. "Sir, the plane is empty." Ibrahim Traore himself stepped forward and entered the aircraft. The scene inside was nothing less than mockery. A few fake boxes, some counterfeit bags, and a note. "This is a symbolic apology." A crimson glare appeared in Ibrahim Traore's eyes. "So this is your friendship," he said, gritting his teeth in rage. Cameras were on, and the president immediately decided, now the world must face the truth. "This is a lie! This is betrayal!" This is not just Burkina Faso. This is a message to all small nations of the world that your trust is never safe. He held an emergency live press conference, where the empty aircraft's visuals were broadcast worldwide. People were shocked, disturbed, and furious. The gold, for which Ibrahim Traore had risked his life, was still missing. At that very moment, he made a decision. The enemy would not be answered with silence, but with such cunning that they would be trapped in their own conspiracy. He picked up the phone and dialed just one number. "I need your mastery once again." From the other side came a faint laugh. "Do you want Israel's brain taken out this time?" With gravity, Ibrahim Traore replied, "This time, their entire memory must be erased. Not hacking, a lesson." The call ended. The war had begun. And this time, the enemy's strike had gone in vain. But Ibrahim Traore's strike would not miss. In the residence of Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, an emergency meeting was underway. The hall was filled with tension. Military generals, Mossad's director, and officers of the National Cybersecurity Authority, all staring at one another. The head of Mossad spoke with a trembling voice. "Our entire cyber wall has collapsed. The enemy is stripping us bare inside our own home." Netanyahu, usually brimming with confidence, was drenched in sweat. He slammed his fist on the table. "How could this happen? We have the world's best intelligence." At that moment, his satellite phone rang. The screen flashed a name, Donald Trump, White House. Netanyahu picked it up. "Hello." From the other side came Trump's sharp, furious voice. "What the hell are you people doing? One of your foolish decisions has thrown me into global embarrassment." Trump's rage was uncontrollable. "If Ibrahim Traore leaks our joint nuclear project's secret agreements, our entire politics will collapse. Who have you tangled with? This is no ordinary African leader. This is not a man. This is a complete war brain." Netanyahu stammered, "We tried to stop a plane, but later realized it was Burkina Faso's legitimate aircraft. Now we are sending it back with an apology." "Back?" Trump's voice had lowered, but it was dripping with venom. "You'd be sending it back if your systems were still alive. This is not a return. This is a plea. Return the real gold immediately, or we will issue a statement against you ourselves." The call ended. For the first time in his life, Netanyahu felt the weight of political defeat. He summoned his advisor, prepare the real gold, and dispatch 2 genuine cargo planes to Burkina Faso. But remember, we are doing this for peace, not out of surrender. The advisor nodded, but in his heart he knew. This is not peace, it is complete defeat. Meanwhile, in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim Traore was informed that Israel was sending 2 real cargo planes, loaded with the actual gold. Yet Ibrahim Traore did not smile but said gravely, "Remember, Traore, until those planes land here, our hacking system will not be restored." He instructed his team, "Keep full watch on the satellites. If there is any trickery, whatever remains will also be wiped out." During this time, a video was forcibly broadcast on Israeli media. The voice of Ibrahim Traore echoed in it. "We do not seek war with you, but you have forced us. You stole our trust, branded us as terrorists, and turned the world against us. Now you will account for every single brick." This video went viral across the globe. Journalists from France, Germany, Turkey, and Brazil openly questioned Israel's false claims. Even inside America, several senators demanded answers from Trump. Netanyahu, whose politics was built on power and arrogance, had now become a silent apologist. Every moment he feared that the next step might expose him completely before the world. Finally, through diplomatic channels, Israel sent an official apology letter to the president of Burkina Faso. It read, "We regret our actions. We acknowledge that this is your national treasure, and we are returning it to you." But for Ibrahim Traore, this was not enough. He said to Issa, "Just like they brought a fake plane before, I am sure deception is still possible. Until the aircraft actually arrives here, we will believe nothing." And thus, the process of returning the real gold began. But now the entire world's eyes were fixed on whether, had the enemy truly spoken the truth, or was a new conspiracy about to unfold? At Ouagadougou airport, there was an uproar. The presidential security forces were fully mobilized. On the radar screens of air traffic control, 2 large cargo planes had appeared, the very planes Israel claimed were carrying the real gold. The whole world's gaze was on this moment. Every international news channel was broadcasting the historic landing live. This time, Ibrahim Traore did not remain silent. He decided to personally be present at the airport with the security team. His face was serious, his eyes suspicious, and his demeanor resolute. As soon as the first cargo plane landed, a wave of joy swept through the people. They began shouting slogans. "We have won! Our gold has returned!" But Ibrahim raised his hand and silenced them. "Victory is not complete until it is certain that this is the very treasure, the trust of our nation." Security officers opened the doors and entered the aircraft. The first encounter was with the pilot. The pilot was silent, nervous, and drenched in sweat. When identification documents were demanded, he faltered. Scanning revealed the pilot was a dismissed officer of the Israeli Air Force, reactivated under fake identity. Upon entering the aircraft, a storm of shock stunned the entire team. The containers that were visible were empty. Some held plastic blocks, some filled with fake steel bricks, and some with only paper sacks. Not a single speck of gold was there. Ibrahim Traore himself entered and lifted a block, smashing it hard onto the ground. It broke open, and foam poured out from inside. He looked straight into the camera and said gravely, "This is Israel's apology?" An emergency live broadcast order was issued immediately. On every major news channel worldwide, Ibrahim Traore's live coverage began. He addressed the people, the United Nations, and the global community. "We trusted the enemy. We believed their promise. And once again, they betrayed us. This fake plane, fake gold, and fake apology. This is more than a political trick. This is an attack on our sovereignty." At that moment, the world was silent. No one had an answer. The Israeli embassy had come under pressure. Live debates began in Tel Aviv's media. Were we truly wrong? Did we knowingly lie? In a secret meeting, Netanyahu fumed, "This plane was only sent to buy time. The real one will be sent soon. Just silence, Ibrahim." But Ibrahim Traore was not one to be silenced. He immediately summoned his intelligence and cybersecurity team for a briefing. Entering the room, he said only one line, "This is now war, And I will not stop. Standing beside him, Isa, the former Mossad hacker, quietly said, "Sir, if you permit, shall I begin the next stage now?" Ibrahim Traore handed Isa a paper, on which was written, "Operation Zero Trust." Isa smiled. Now Israel will fear not us, but its own system. The room's lights dimmed, the screens lit up, and a new phase began, a phase in which, against the enemy's lies, stood not just truth, but truth armed with technology. It was 3 o'clock at night, in the secret command room of the presidential palace. Except for glowing screens and faint flickers, silence prevailed. Isa, the hacker who broke away from Assad, but stood with justice, sat before Ibrahim Traore, his face calm with strange confidence. "Ready?" Ibrahim asked gravely. "Not just ready, but now their own weapons will turn against them," Isa replied, and typed one final command on the keyboard. Seconds later, the screens of a secret drone base in southern Israel went black. All the drones, which Mossad had deployed to monitor sensitive regions across the world, came online one by one. But now the control was no longer in Israel's hands. From that same room in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim Traore and Isa began altering the direction, speed, and targets of those drones. The first drone was sent toward Tel Aviv, the second toward government offices in Jerusalem, and the third toward Netanyahu's personal residence. In Tel Aviv's night, suddenly the danger sirens wailed. Soldiers rushed toward bunkers, children cried, and citizens stood on the streets in bewilderment. But this was no ordinary attack. With every drone was attached a loudspeaker, through which a message echoed, "You played with our honor. Now we will strip you of your peace." The first drone passed close to Netanyahu's home and, with a loud blast, dropped an empty bomb, not to cause destruction, but only to instill fear. Attached to that bomb was a note, "This is the weight of your lies." Netanyahu ran screaming out of the house, his wife and children following behind in terror. Half crazed, he shouted, "How is this possible? Our systems were supposed to be impregnable." The Israeli Defense Forces immediately called an emergency meeting. The generals declared, "The country is in a state of war, but we cannot find a trace of the enemy." One general stammered, "Sir, our own drones are now against us. The control is not in our hands." The Mossad director hurled his phone onto the table. "This is not just hacking, this is humiliation." Meanwhile, Ibrahim Traore sat calmly in the presidential palace. On the screens before him appeared the very drones, the devastated Netanyahu and the panicked Israeli people, all live. Isa asked, "Sir, should we plunge them into a complete blackout now?" Ibrahim shook his head. "No, not yet. First, they must realize their palaces are made of dust." At that very moment, Israeli media had also been hacked. On every channel, one sentence repeated again and again, "You stole gold, we stole peace." This message was not only for the Israeli public, but to show the entire world that when even a small nation awakens, great powers begin to tremble. At the same time, in the White House, an emergency meeting was underway. Donald Trump shouted in fury, "I told you, don't provoke him. Now suffer. Now Israel stands alone." The world's trust in Israel had begun to crumble. Their defense systems lay in shreds. And before an African president, their mighty weapons had turned useless. And yet, more was still to come. It was the last hours of the night, but Ibrahim Traore had no trace of sleep in his eyes. He stood in the center of the presidential command room. Before him, on the screen, scenes of burning offices in Tel Aviv, screaming citizens, and exhausted emergency services continued to stream. Isa entered the final code into the system and quietly said, "Now we have even reached their nuclear plants. Just one click, and all their secrets will be exposed to the world." Ibrahim Traore remained silent. Then softly he spoke, "I am fighting a war, not of revenge, but of justice. Yet they believe this is our weakness. Now it is time for the final message." He recorded a new video, instantly broadcast on all hacked media networks worldwide. In the video, he declared, "We have not come to destroy you, but to answer you in your own language. You called our gold terrorism, you labeled our honor a crime. Now you have 1 hour. If our $200 billion treasure is not returned, then we will deprive you of your $400 billion weapons. We have broken your digital walls, reversed your drones, and now stolen your peace. The world trembled. Emergency sessions were called at the United Nations. The European Union pressured Israel. France, Germany, Spain, and even countries like Canada issued statements. Israel must immediately cooperate with Burkina Faso with complete transparency to prevent a global crisis. At the White House, President Donald Trump once again shouted at Netanyahu over a video call, "If you don't resolve this, understand this. We will pull our support from you. I will not let my political reputation be destroyed by your stubbornness." Netanyahu, who once proudly stared the world in the eye, now sat hidden in his office. The Mossad director hesitantly said, "Sir, if we do not comply with Ibrahim Traore's demand, he will leak everything." Netanyahu, grinding his teeth, said, "Send it, send the gold and the apology. Just stop this devastation." A secret message was sent to Ouagadougou. "We are returning the real cargo with full security. We admit a mistake was made. We hope you will prioritize global peace." Ibrahim Traore smiled, glanced at Issa and said, "Now we will end this game. But the lesson, they will never forget." He ordered all the hacked networks to be gradually restored, but signaled to keep surveillance over Israeli systems. At that time, the world witnessed a unique spectacle. The president of a small African nation, without firing a bomb, without fighter jets, only with technology, intelligence, and dignity, had brought the world's most dangerous agency to its knees. On social media, hashtags began to trend. #Ibrahim the Lion, #Justice, for Burkina Faso, #Digital Revolution. And in a Tel Aviv newsroom, an anchor quietly remarked, "Today Israel did not lose weapons. It lost its pride." The story was nearing its end, but its echoes would be heard for centuries. Ouagadougou Airport was about to witness the greatest moment in history. A strange silence filled the air, as though the entire universe held its breath in anticipation. From the presidential palace to ordinary homes, every screen was broadcasting live. In the eyes of the nation, dreams; in their hearts, prayers. And on Ibrahim Traore's face was that same boundless calm. Air traffic control announced over the radio, "The 2 cargo planes loaded with gold have entered Burkina Faso's airspace." At this news, chants erupted across the nation. But Ibrahim Traore still stood silent and composed. For him, this was not merely the return of treasure, but the restoration of an entire generation's dignity. He left the command room and decided to go directly to the runway, where he himself would accept his nation's trust. The first plane landed, then the second, both escorted by Russian and Burkinabe special forces for protection. As soon as the doors opened, the security team entered and searched every container. Inside every container lay the very gold, engraved with Burkina Faso's national seal. Pure, gleaming, that historic treasure, once stolen, had now returned with full honor and protection. Ibrahim Traore lifted one brick with his own hand, clenched it in his fist, and looked toward the sky. His eyes were moist, but his lips whispered words of gratitude. "This is not just gold. This is the right of my people. And today, that right has been restored." In his address, he said, "This was not our war. This was a battle to protect our honor. We fired no bullet, shed no blood, yet we defeated the enemy's system, shattered their arrogance into pieces. We showed the world that when justice is armed with knowledge, it becomes the greatest power." He immediately issued orders. Military security around all national gold mines to be doubled. The national treasure to be transferred to a secret location. A lawsuit for damages against Israel to be filed in the international court. Meanwhile, Israeli media was silent. No defense, no justification. Only one sentence running across every channel. "We lost because we stood on lies." Donald Trump issued his reaction. Leaders like Ibrahim Traore possess the power to change history. Messages from around the globe flooded social media. Africa's superhero, the legend of Ouagadougou, Ibrahim, never bowed, never sold, only fought and won. After this victory, Ibrahim Traore launched a new initiative, the Digital African Defense Alliance, with the aim that no African nation would ever again fall prey to a global conspiracy. 1 year later, that same day was declared National Treasure Dignity Day. In schools, children were taught not only military battles, but battles of the mind are just as important. That evening, as the sun set, Ibrahim Traore stood alone on the presidential balcony. Issa came near and smiled gently. "Sir, we did it." Ibrahim looked toward the sky in Doha and softly said, "This is only the beginning. The world still has much to learn from the power of truth." And thus, Burkina Faso's gold was returned. But along with it, a new history was written, where one man, as the voice of a nation, shook the entire world.